Welcome to Martini Time. Let's see what the frog, let me turn him around. The frog will bring up in the pond of the unconscious. What insight are we going to play with today? So, what's in the news? What's in the news is the internment of the 41st President of the United States at the Capitol. So it's been on TV all day, and it's a relief from talking about Trump. So the title of this talk is When Gods Die. So, having read Joseph Campbell and studied mythology most of my life, I get a wider angle view on what our society does in reference to the ancient mythologies of humanity. And one of the great mythologies of that you can see everywhere if you have the eyes to see is the goddess and her dying and resurrected son. Now, the mythological symbols for the goddess are the moon, the earth, or the earth is the goddess, Mother Nature, and her consort, her son, is symbolically represented, mythically represented as the moon. It's very logical. The moon waxes and wanes. It's born, it comes to be full, and then it dies. And then it spends 3 days in the tomb. And then it's born again. And then it becomes a full moon and fully reflects the sun, the transcendent sun god. And then that's dying, and then that sun dies again. So right there, you get the cycles of nature represented by the moon and by the seasons. Plants are born, plants die. Animals are born, animals die. Men are born, men die. Birth, death, birth, death. It's like the breathing of life, birth, death. Birth, death. So this is represented mythologically in many ways because we want to get in tune with nature. We want to get in tune with the cosmos. The first human civilizations in the Middle East were based on the priests observing the stars and calculating their movements and creating their societies in alignment with the stars. So there's a human need to get in alignment with a higher order. Otherwise, you're lost. You're just wandering around, babble, 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 you see. So we need to get in alignment with some higher order. I mean, this is basic. All religion is getting in alignment with the higher order of God. Society is based on laws, and the people have to get in alignment with them. If you don't get in alignment with them, you go to jail. So it works on the secular and the religious level. And it works on the mythological level too. And personally, we all want to get in alignment. If you're into Buddhism or Zen, you want to get in alignment with the Tao, with the Dharma. If Eckhart Tolle, you want to get in alignment with the now. You see, in alignment with the true self. I'm lost. I'm out of alignment. I need a chiropractic adjustment to get me back in alignment. So there's all different, the basic theme here is the same, getting in alignment. And then there are various means and ways, and whether you're already in alignment and forgot, or else you're fallen and can never be in alignment, and you have to have some mediator to get in alignment, So that's the Christian way, is that you're fallen and out of alignment, and you can't get in alignment except through the grace or the mediator of Christ, you see. So it's through Christ that you get in alignment. But you are fallen, and you'll never get up without the grace of God and the alignment through Christ, you see. So Christ is kind of like a spiritual chiropractor. But anyway, so we're talking about when gods die. Well, now the American president, our system that we set up, it's very funny that, when the founding fathers set up our system, they were in revolt against the monarchy of England, which was the only way societies were ruled at that time, all up until the First World War, was through the alignment with the king, who was the emissary of the sun god. It's the pyramid, you see. The sun god, and you have the king, who's dripping with gold, and then the laws of the king, which everybody must obey. Or if you science, there's the natural laws, or the laws of the king in society, or whatever, So the presidency we set up was kind of like a dying and resurrected sun. In ancient societies, the kings of the ancient civilizations were actually killed. I mean, they were actually ritually sacrificed willingly as the dying and resurrected sun. So you were only king for a day or for a while, and then there was a ritual sacrifice, and a new king was born. And so that ritual sacrifice takes all kinds of forms. Usually in monarchies, the firstborn son of the king is the next king, and there may be a plot to get rid of the old guy so the new one can be born, you see. And Napoleon was interesting because he became emperor and he crowned himself, you see. I don't need the external crowning, or I'll do it myself, boom. But anyway, this whole idea of the dying and resurrected. So what the setup we have here is that the president is the dying and resurrected Son of God. And he lives for 4 years. And then if he's good, he gets another 4 years, but then he goes. So the pomp and ceremony of today's internment and the pageantry of this death, you see, of a sun god, is very great. It's kind of like the bigger the empire is, the bigger the pageantry. So that's kind of like a sign of your greatness, and we are a great country. And so pageantries are important because they kind of like unite our society, our people. Through the ritual. So this is a ritual, a national funeral of one of our gods. And he'll be interned in his library where he will be immortal. I think I've forgotten where Bush's library is, but there he will be interned. And all of the things that he did, you see, will be there for study. So the idea of a president or a god is that the god makes this earthbound god, this president, you see, is the one who makes history. So this idea of the mythic individual, the heroic individual, is that it's the individual who makes history. So the president makes history for us. We have to live with what he does, good or bad, you see. So we're very interested in the president and what he does because we have to live. And it's kind of like a woman, who marries a man and then has to live with what he does. So, she elects him and then has to live with what he does. So we elect a president and we have to live with what he does, good or bad. But, you see, we have a chance to get a new one every 4 or 8 years. Don't have to wait till he dies, an old man, you see. Like other societies. So that's a good thing. But the point I wanted to make is that this is a mythic, this is a secular god, this presidency. And that's why we find it so fascinating and important. And now it occupies us all the time. We're right now. As soon as one's elected, you talk about who's the next one going to be. It's kind of like Christmas. Christmas started Christmas Eve and then started 2 weeks before Christmas, and then finally now it's Thanksgiving, and now it starts at Halloween. So Christmas may be starting at 4th of July soon. So it's kind of like that with the election of the president. It keeps, that's a full-time occupation. But anyway, that just expresses the importance and the fascination of it. I also wanted to comment on the fact that the presidency is a death and a resurrection has different layers. And the one I like or want to focus on is the fact that when you become president, you die to your personal life. You have to let go of all your business interests, your conflicts of interest. You give up your personal power. You're no longer Mr. Ed, you are now Mr. President. So now this office, you see, has a mythic power to it, a charisma. When you become president, you have charisma. People, oh, you can feel the charisma. It's the power of the office. It's not that personality. A personality in itself doesn't have any charisma. But when you take on the office of the president, you take on the charisma of the president, you see. And you live like a royalty. I mean, everything is done for you. You have valets. You live like a king. Everything is done for you, you know. It's kind of like you have the red carpet. Your feet don't touch the ground. That's the idea of the red carpet, is that the divine king, who is filled with this charisma and power, does not touch the ground because it'll ground the power. So the divine king, the office of the president, you see, has power, has charisma. And in many cases, you know, people, this charisma is healing. People are awestruck. The diseases, not particularly in our culture, but the charisma of Hitler was so great that people were healed in his presence. You know, so that idea of this power contained in one person, centered, so that his power, he looks at something or says, do that or do that, the whole world changes, you know. He can change the world with one word, with one act, with a thought. See, that's the power of the presidency. But this power, the thing is, and I know this is my practice of yoga, the idea behind, stay with me here, the idea behind the practice of yoga is that if you want to have the power of grace or God or this psychic power or this charisma, you have to tame the ego. Because if the ego has any selfish desires, when it gets that power, it's going to be destructive. So you don't want that power to be given to somebody whose ego is not matured, whose ego is selfish and self-centered, you see. You don't want to give the jaguar to your teenager who hasn't passed the test, who isn't responsible. You don't want to give the power to somebody who is not able to hold the power and to exercise the power. This is evident in everything, you see. You have to be prepared, you have to be trained, you have to be disciplined in order to hold the power, or you will destroy the world. This is in Indian mythology. There's always some yogi who goes through all this discipline and gets the power of God, and God can't take it away. I mean, you earned it. So this yogi starts going crazy and destroying everything. And the other gods come together and say, we got to stop this guy, this egomaniac, this Ravana, you see. And so they conspire to trick him. Because they can't take his power away. Just like Trump, you can't take his power away. You know, so once you're given the power, you can't take it away, but you can trick him. So anyway, I just thought this was I've just been reflecting on this with the pageantry, the pomp and circumstance, and of our presidential funerals. We don't get many that often. When was the last one? Ford? It's been a while. Anyway, Nixon, Ford. That's it. Anyway, thanks for dropping in.